Guys, Deluded Guna, YouTube's N'Golo Kante. It spoiled my evening, man. I've been late to the party, man. I seen Mr. Tyler, PFA chairman, or PFA, the union boss, essentially, because we need to remember PFA is a union. For those of you that don't understand what a union is, specifically if you've got tradesmen in your family and they're going for if they have any grievances or they feel they're being unfairly paid or there's any sort of injustice at the workplace, they typically go to a union boss and they'll pattern everything for them. There's many different union bosses. I just know for a fact tradesmen, that's their route, so I'm using them as an example. So if we use that same example, in theory, yes, there's other roles specifically at clubs now to deal with any grievances or problems players have, and we've seen them speak out on social media. So I don't think it's as heavily played on as we have now. But they're essentially a union boss. So when you see things like the dispute between Mahrez or the racism, FA's got to deal with the incident. But in regards of, for want of a better word, and rehabilitation and help and advice and all of the things, the PFA is where players would go to. Like, they are the unions for the players, essentially. I mean, yeah. So when you see that there's several things that are bothering players, whether it's the effects of heading, which you've seen the documentary from Alan Shearer to raise awareness. You've actually seen ex-pros dying from it. You've seen numerous researches from that. When there's several research schemes being underfunded with only 100 grand and things like that, even though that's a lot of money on a general basis, when you see things like that, but the boss of this thing is on 2.3 million a year, how does anyone sleep at night, or how does anyone see the injustice? It's a bit like society. I don't want to talk about political problems and stuff like that, but there's a certain party in England, it's a specific political party that hates people on benefits, that hates scroungers and things like that. Yet despite being housing landlords and things like that, they're out here claiming hell of expenses that they're not entitled to. So they're essentially frauding the country as well. And that's what you're seeing by him. He's meant to be the union boss, and he's doing these things. 2.3 million a year. I don't know how he sleeps at night. He's on parity with a lot of Premier League ballers. He arguably this is dropping. Arguably on more than a lot of Premier League ballers if you look at it from week per week. One season he earned just over 3 mil, and that's more than a typical wage, and it's even being pushed out further. In fact, there was even a year he said that what he gets paid is pennies compared to bankers. So that shows you a man sees nothing morally wrong with taking these things. And if that wasn't big enough, a man gets private healthcare and he gets a lot of free utility benefits. So if a man's having his bills paid for, if he's having his transport to work paid for, and he's being paid, he essentially has no outgoing. So he's living life. Now, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous for him. He's living a life. He's got a car allowance. He's got bonuses. He's got a great salary. But it's just annoying. Like football owners, uni bosses, things like this, it's just happening too much on a regular occurrence, man. Many retail companies, you're seeing shareholders reap the benefits at the expense of the workers as well. And this is it, to be honest. There's several injustices going on in the football, and where has he been to help any of them? I mean, 100k being invested into helping research people that research footballers that have suffered brain damage or how heading a football rejects the brain. From only putting 100k into that, but taking millions, you've essentially told people your life is better than millions of people that could benefit for years to come and generations to come from that research. Because if we can find out what hurts, what causes brain damage, I'm never going to say not going to stop heading a football, but there could be certain things people could do within training or things away from a training pitch that could be done to help people. But instead of that, you chose to underfund them to get your 2 odd million a year and get your nice little holidays and things like that. Like, what is this? What is this? It's ridiculous. What he's getting in regards to pay is around 22 times less. Like, it's ridiculous, man. I've got so much to say about this. Like, it's just, it's ridiculous, man. It's like, what have I got here? Based on a doc we are shown, I'm talking about the document we shown in the article. It shows only 400k given towards of helping victims with child abuse and areas around that. So if they like similar to what I said about the brain stuff. We're seeing a lot of stories come out, right? We've seen a lot of coaches going to prison. It's disgraceful. If it's being underfunded, helping coaches and young and old players that have been victims of sexual abuse as a child by coaches that were in the wrong, if that's being underfunded, you're not helping people psychologically. There's a lot of people that could have help that, as a result of what they've went through, are now feeling depressed. And I really touch wood, I hope that's not the case. They've went and killed themselves and they've gone off the rails and done all of these things, and that was a point that tipped them over the edge. But if they had support, ultimately, regardless of bad things happening to you or not in life, we make our own decisions. But if they had that support, they could have been different. But instead of investing significant amount of funds to bring a real change, you only invested underfunded with 400 grand. Like, while you're taking millions, again, showing and displaying that your life is better than everyone's. And for a union boss that's meant to be the man of the people, the voice of the people, the voice of everybody, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. There's not one organisation, whether it's the PFA, whether it's the FA, whether it's the Premier League, whether it's anyone that deals with grassroots football, there's not a single organ at FIFA, there's not a single uncorrupt organisation that's actually helping legit funds in football, whether it's grassroots, whether it's sexual abuse, whether it's brain damage, whether it's several grants to enable coaches to re-license themselves and gain additional qualifications. It's ridiculous. And speaking on top of that, 1.7 mil went towards educational grants and funds. So that might seem like a lot, but again, it's less than his salary. And again, it displays that if he's only investing 1 million into a grant, which millions of people, ironically, are trying to access so they can get the level 1, 2, 3, or 4, and etc., or pro license, he's telling you his life is better than theirs. More so to the fact, if a lot of coaches like that, I've seen that financially cannot go and do it without these grants, or need that grant to get a leg up to hire franchise to achieve good things. He's killing the game. You're essentially killing the game. The game will only get the best players and the best coaches breed the best teams, right? So if you're not having the best coaches, if you're hurting these educational funds, these grassroots funds that enable coaches and players to better themselves, you're harming the game. But who cares? Because your funds are there, and this is a valuable lesson, people. Humans are in self-interest. He might think what he's doing is moral, or even worse, he might think it's immoral, but he's still getting paid. Salary first, conscience later. A very respected professor, Blade Brown, go and get all his mixtapes, said that is true. This is really what happens. I read in the book as well, and I'm not to be stereotypical, but it said if you're hungry, if you're directly very hungry, you're not going to care about the thousands of kids starving in Africa. And that's true. If we're dirt hungry, you're not going to care about people suffering, really and truly. Of course you are, but directly you want to feed your belly first. That's the approach I want you guys to understand. Like, it's ridiculous, man. It's ridiculous that in a day and age when you see, especially for me, the sexual abuse things, how many coaches are being covered up, how many scandals are being covered up, how many evidence is only coming years and years later. Kieran Dyer suffered. We only learned years now from how long he's been playing. For years, we only learned that he was a victim of sexual abuse coming up as a footballer, and he credited these funds that helped him, well, these schemes that helped him get his life back on track and get his head right. If he a Premier League footballer, how many others are there that must have been like him that are scared to speak out or can't get help? It's ridiculous, and it really is immoral. And don't get me started. This man even gets, on top of the benefits of his car, of his utilities and this nice generous salary. A man also gets and them things there. A man also gets bonuses. A man also gets a couple bonuses. Like when he got 707 odd K bonus. Like, it's ridiculous. Like, it's ridiculous. And now you wonder why the English game is in the state it's in. Now you wonder, because of these things, and these are moral people. And I'm done, man. There ain't nothing else to say, man. Guys, to do the Guna YouTubes in Golo Kante. I hope I've given you guys something to take away, man. Fuck these fat cats who do these pussy old shits. These are actually pussy old things, man. Guys, to do the Guna YouTubes in Golo Kante.